Today we have with us globally renowned historian Dr. Lavanya Vemsani, and we are here today to discuss the extremely controversial so-called Aryan invasion theory and the evidence that has come to light in recent decades about which basically suggests that it was a fake theory. But let me introduce you, Dr. Vemsani. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. I'm happy to join.
Yeah. Dr. Vemsani, now let's start with all the evidence that has come to light in the last couple of decades, and especially genetic evidence. Now, there's clear-cut genetic evidence that, that the so-called Aryan invasion theory that was pretty much propagated by colonial historians and kind of inspired by the Nazis was actually almost like a fake theory. But let's get down to the evidence that we have today.
Right. We have to find the truth, right? So what happened and what kind of evidence do we have? So linguistics, it's a constructed theory.
Yeah.
We can construct, we can deconstruct, there is no reliability. But when you look at archaeological sources or when you look at genetic sources, it's not constructed. It's based on the evidence. It's based on what is there. So it's much more reliable, much more clearer. So we will examine these examples. So first of all, let's talk about what we have genetics wise, historical genetics. So then we'll go on with archaeology. So genetics, of course, places India at the center of population history of the world, because the earliest evidence for early peopling of the world is actually found in India right after Africa. So we have these early humans who are called hominids, and then we have the new humans who are called hominids. So we are actually the descendants of the hominids. So hominids are spread across the world, but the first group of hominids right after Africa are found in India. So that is proven. There are two ways to understand genetic history. So the genetic history can be understood by examining the genetics of the living population of the country. So by examining the genetics of substantial population of India, it was found out that the oldest genetics. So there is A, B for male genetics, which is in Africa. So the next step is C. So the C is actually found in India, dated to 73,000 years ago. And when it comes to female genetics, it's the same. The macro genetical women also, the M is found in India. L, of course, the female genetic line L is in Africa. But the next step, the next female genetic line, the mutation and then the ongoing line is in India. So which shows that the oldest is in India. So the non-African population comes from further mutations from these. So C and then D is also found in India and Andamans and Southeast Asia, and then it goes on to F, and F has more. And then E, of course, is found in West and Middle East and all that. The point is, India has the oldest male genetic line, which gave rise to subsequent lines, as well as India also has the female genetic lines, M, and M gave rise to N, and then there is R, and then R gave rise to U. This U is very crucial because U2B2 is actually found in Rakhigarhi excavations. U2B2 is actually found in 15% of the Indian population, regardless of caste or tribes. It's in different percentages, but percentages don't matter for history. What matters for history is dates. So U2 actually evolved in India 16,000 years ago. So it's an indigenously developed clade. And then it has evolved into a number of subgenetic clades. U2, B2, U2, 1, that. Category evidence shows very clearly that 73,000 years ago there was a female clade, macroclade that entered India, and then it gave rise to further mutations, and then it further mutated to give rise to this new group in India, and which is 16,000 years ago, which shows that there is no clear invasions or migrations from outside. And same thing with the male genetic evidence also. Male genetics also evolved within India from 73,000 years ago. There is C, and then there is D in the Oceania, and then there is F. And then, of course, the mutation that gave rise to this, people call this, oh, there is this R1 that is the evidence for the migration. No, R actually evolved in India. The mutation was in India. And then R1 also, the mutation was in India. So if the mutation is in India, it evolved in India, it's oldest in India. R1 is actually 36,000 years old in India. And in Europe, of course, you find a lot of percentage, 60% or whatever, but it's only 23,000 years old. Yeah. So how can we say, and there is no major change. So, for example, if there is somebody or some great tribe came into India, there should be sudden change. So there is no sudden change in genetic history. It's a clear, gradual evolution. And then there is no sudden change in cultural artifacts in archaeology also. There is no new pottery, there is no new weapons, no new dress, no new language, no new anything, no bones, no anything. So if somebody really came, where did they disappear? Where are their bones? Where are their genes? Where are their parts? So.
Yeah, and the genetic evidence is very clear that the first non-African male and first non-African female both originated in India. And genetics don't lie. This is scientific evidence, and there is also which gives rise to this theory that actually there was an out of India migration. That populations from India, then one part went towards Europe and the other part went towards China and then all the way down to Australia. I think that is the current understanding of genetics. And yet we find that even though there is such substantial, and we are just on genetics, I mean, in our future interviews, we'll also cover other areas, but in spite of such strong evidence and genetic data, one still finds that there are still some people who want to keep propagating, as I say, the Nazi-inspired, Aryan invasion. Because Aryan invasion became a bit controversial, they moved to Aryan migration. Then they said they removed the word Aryan, and then they wanted to put some other kind of migration. So why is, it almost seems that they want to deny Indian. and deny the fact, and deny the fact that India was indeed the cradle of civilization.
It is the cradle of civilization, because the earliest human evidence is also found in India. So 4.9 thousand years ago, 100,000 years ago, there is evidence found that's called Shivapithecus in the northwestern hills, Himalayan foothills. And then, of course, in southern region, also you have Narmada Man, and then also in Karnataka, more evidence, and also from southern India also. So anyway, 4.9 100,000 years ago, of course, there is already evidence. There is already Upper Paleolithic evidence. So, which means the Australoid or the early humans already lived here. There is Paleolithic called Ramapithecus, Sivapithecus, and then there is Mesolithic. There is transition phase, and from Mesolithic onwards, we have more evidence because. Archaeological evidence shows that there is, large Toba volcanic explosion 74,000 years ago. So most of the archaeological sites were destroyed. Most of the population might have been destroyed also. So we have evidence from 73,000 years ago, which is Upper Paleolithic. And the Upper Paleolithic population definitely is modern humans. They're not hominids, they're hominins. And their weapons also change. The Upper Paleolithic weapons are also a little bit different from Lower Paleolithic. So the new humans, new foundations, new weapons, new kind of livelihood that still persists in tribal areas is found in Upper Paleolithic. And of course, we know the cultural remains wherever they are excavated. For example, the Bagor Goddess shrine, and then of course another goddess shrine, Paleolithic, Upper Paleolithic goddess shrine, very similar shrine was excavated in Puranakila area in Delhi. So many places have goddess temples, and modern goddess temples are also very similar to you have this triangular stone, striated stone, and so very similar across India. So that shows the same people were living, same people were practicing lots of cultural practices that they practiced in Upper Paleolithic era, kind of like 10,000 years ago. And then of course they're doing the same things. The pottery designs, the other designs also persist. And the genetic evidence, the R1 they say is symbolic of this population, that population. No, it's across everybody. It's found in large scale in a tribal group called Chenchus in Andhra Pradesh, and they called it an aberration. How is it an aberration? It's found across everywhere. So if it finds you find it in Chenchus, and then you know it doesn't support your thesis, so you say it's an aberration. So they played a lot of tricks to go against the evidence and bring the theory, keep the theory of Aryan invasion alive, but with different names. Different names like. Ancient North Indians, ancient South Indians. What is ancient North Indian, ancient South Indian? There is no difference. They have the same kind of cultural goddess temples, and they have same kind of pottery. They have same kind of, so genetics. So how do you differentiate?
And I think genetic evidence also suggests that that Indians predominantly are one ethnicity of people, and of course there has always been some migration of people around the world from X place to Y place. So there could be minute mutations, or there could be minute differences, say maybe northeast or northwest and things like that. But essentially, Indians from north to south and east to west, and we are talking about the subcontinent really, are essentially one ethnicity of people, and I think that it is very clear, from the evidence that this was a ploy basically to divide and rule, which was kind of done by the colonial historians and other kinds of propagandists. So just to conclude, what can be done to counter this fake narrative? Because there's so much scientific evidence. I mean, forget every other kind of evidence, and yet it is not settled. Yet the debate continues.
That's what I don't understand. Even though there is so much overwhelming evidence in cultural data as well as genetic data, some people still want to continue this divide and rule theory. There must be some other agenda, because I'm not saying nobody came into India or nobody lived in India. People always came, and Indians welcomed guests, and so Atidhi Devo Bhava, right? So it's not like there is this opposition to anybody coming in, but the only opposition is that somebody came with weapons, destroyed, and built a new civilization here. That is not true. There was no destruction. There was no mass graves. There was no mass killings. So there is no divide between the people. So for the imperialists, for the colonialists, it was very useful They found a small group and then tried to affiliate with them by creating this kind of theories. They did that in Rwanda. They did that all across Africa. They always have these theories. And the theory is always the same. There is always a small, tiny group from north comes and they look a little bit lighter, and then they come and destroy everybody, all natives, and then impose their culture. Not true. Did not happen in Africa, did not happen here. Rwanda, of course, suffered because of this theory, ethnic divisions.
I think the Hutus and the Tutsis, I think they created this artificial division even there.
This kind of divisions, and started giving them identity cards and all that. At least, we opposed these theories and survived an ethnic but I really think this is a kind of theory that was intentionally created. It is agenda driven to divide people. It is still being used to divide people. It's for us, for Indians, for us to learn the truth, for us to understand what is important, and then for us to counter this. We don't have to fall for these false theories and forget who we are. Nobody has to tell us who we are. We know who we are. Why should we believe their theories?
Yeah, and just to conclude, one last point which I want to make, that in terms of genetics, I mean the male lineage is easy, with the Y gene, but even the female lineage can pretty much be traced through mitochondrial DNA. Right. So in the sense, I want to clarify to our viewers that this is solid scientific evidence. It is not based on conjecture and theory.
Mm-hmm. Right. It is traceable, and it is also traceable in the time period. When you give your DNA sample, they can actually track your genes, and then they can also track how old this goes back. So the DNA clock can also be traced, which is very, very interesting and very useful resource. Because for history, the dating is more important than percentages. And people actually confuse with these percentages, because in Hungary and Hungary, I think, large percentage of R1 is found, but it doesn't matter. It's younger. It's only like 17,000 to 20,000 years ago. But in India, it is 36,000 years. So it's older, and it's also diverse. It's much more diverse in India. So if it lived in one area for a long time, it will show diversity.
Dr. Vemsani, thank you so much for your time today, and we will continue these conversations. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.